And good evening, barflies and lounge lizards, and welcome to Midnite Martinis, the show where I take a look at something from my personal collection. And tonight we'll be taking a look at one of my biggest collections, actually, and that's movie trailer compilations. And I absolutely love movie trailer compilations, or trailer comps as I lovingly call them. There really is just kind of a special enjoyment that comes from a well-made trailer. It's an art form in and of itself. And sure, the trailer is really just there to sell the movie. But there's really just so much more to it than that. I mean, there really is an art form to making a good trailer. And sometimes trailers take on a life of their own. I mean, there's even cases, and I may talk about a few, where I actually like the trailer better than the movie itself, and vice versa. But we're going to start with the one that started it all for me, the very first trailer comp I ever got, even though I really didn't even know that's what it was at the time. And that's the Horrible Horror Set, hosted by Zachary. And I remember getting this, my mom picked me up from school one day. I was probably in first or second grade, and she had the videotape version of this. Ba-bam, waiting for me. And I had no idea what it was, but I popped it in and just absolutely loved this thing. I mean, this is really one of the defining moments of my life, I'd say, is this compilation. And what it is essentially just a combination of 50s and early 60s sci-fi, B-movies, and monster movies. Never really sure why it's called Horrible Horror, because it's much more a focus on sci-fi and creature features. But anyway, it's just slam full of great old school trailers like that, as well as skits, outtakes. There's some little things of Zachary from different programs, as well as the in-between segments like you would see on a horror host type show, where he comes in and introducing things. Basically, he's being evicted from his castle, and he's having to clean up. And in his eviction, he's going through these different trailers that he happens to have, and he does little skits with it. Very cool. If you're into 50s and 60s sci-fi and monster movies, creature features, this is a absolute must-have. One of the highest recommendations I can make on this list, and it has so many great trailers, and it's where I discovered so many awesome movies from. I mean, for example, Santa Claus Conquers the Martians, Killers from Space, King of the Zombies, Glen or Glenda. This was actually my first exposure at like 7 or 8 years old to Ed Wood and his works, even though, surprisingly, on the original tape, don't think Plan 9 from Outer Space is on here. And that's an interesting thing, too, about the DVD release, is it has a bunch of added trailers to it that the original never had, plus it gives the titles. One of the only things about this original tape release was you didn't know half the time what movie you were looking at unless the trailer actually said what it was. In the cases where it was just a clip from a movie, you had no idea. But then this one came along. I really, though, still learned so much from this one. And now we're jumping into more contemporary trailer comps. And this is 42nd Street Forever Volume 2. Funnily enough, 42nd Street Forever Volume 1 is one of my absolute favorite trailer comps. One of the best there absolutely is. Talk about another where I discovered so many great movies from. And that's something I forgot to mention earlier too, of the beauty of these trailer comps, is you can just discover brand new movies and seek them out. It's just a great way. But surprisingly, I don't own the first volume. I actually have it on a disc that someone gave me. And I always meant to get the DVD version, and then the Blu-ray version came out, and I got that instead, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But either way, this is Volume 2, The Deuce, which is just even more trailers. And this is a good one too. It's not as good as the first one, but there's quite a few good exploitation and B-movie trailers on this one. Stuff ranging from Mr. 45 to Van Nuys Boulevard, The Wild Rebels, lots of biker movies and things of that nature. Savage Sisters, which is a great one. Oh, my neighbor's AC popped on. Please excuse that. But yeah, this one definitely kind of goes into more of the exploitation side of things. And next we have 42nd Street Forever Volume 3, Exploitation Explosion. And this is another good volume. Not as good as the second one, and definitely not as good as the first ones, but still worth having. But it does have some great trailers on it, and something I like too about this one is it starts digging into more martial arts type stuff as well. Because like we have One-Armed Executioner, Enter the Ninja, Five Fingers of Death, and of course, The Stranger and the Gunfighter, which I've covered on this very channel. And you get in some of the usual suspects that you often see on these, like Patrick. The Phase 4 trailer is quite spiffy. You got Alligator, Killerfish. Looking at this one, maybe I am misremembering the goodness of this compilation. Because looking just the two compared, I'm seeing more stuff that kind of tickles my fancy on here. Have to watch them again. Savage Streets. Yeah, you really can barely go wrong with any of these 42nd Street Forever trailer comps. And here we have Volume 4 of the series. And now I remember, I was mixing up this one with this one. This one is a great one. This one is still quite good, but they're starting to little scrape the bottom a tiny bit. Some more obscure trailers, but still, great stuff on here. But I did find myself, skipping them, here and there. But this has stuff like Humongous, The Legend of Boggy Creek, Town the Dreaded Sundown. Let's see, The Jezebels, that's a great one. Let's see, Shout at the Devil. Of course, The Chicken Chronicles. A real highlight, Yor, The Hunter from the Future. That's a great trailer from a film that, it's one of those cases, interestingly, is I've seen that trailer so many times, and this happens with a bunch on here, that I feel like I know these movies so well, but in certain cases, like with Yor, I haven't actually seen the movie, but I've just seen the trailer so many times. Perfect example of that is Torso. I have never seen Torso, but I have seen that trailer so many times, and I forget which one of these it's on, but I know I have Torso on several of these actually, that I almost know the words by heart. I do know some of them by heart, but the Psychosexual Killer. And continuing in the 42nd Street Forever series, we have Volume 5, and these are all that came from the Alamo Drafthouse in Texas. And weirdly enough, I don't quite remember what was on this, even though I rewatched all of these recently in the great DVD rewatch, but I watched them so close together that they kind of have blurred together. Let's see what's on this one. Okay, Life of the Ninja, that's a good one. Sting of the Dragon Masters. Man, I've used samples from those for songs many times. Oh, Lucky 7. Stacy. That's one of the highlight trailers. Another movie I've never actually been able to find in any format, but I've seen that trailer so many times and liked that trailer so much. And now, almost finishing out the 42nd Street Forever releases, we have 42nd Street Forever, the XXX-treme Special Edition. And this is all adult XXX trailers from the 70s and 80s. Now this one, it's novel, and I definitely love having it for the collection, but it can be kind of let's say a tough watch, just sitting through one XXX trailer after another. Definitely has to be broken up and watched in pieces or put on for a party. I've actually put this on in the background of a party before to get quite the response. Okay, now, remember when I mentioned the whole debacle about 42nd Street Forever Volume 1? That's where this comes in. So they released this Blu-ray edition of 42nd Street Forever Volume 1. I was like, okay, great, I'll just get the Blu-ray. And I hurry up and got the Blu-ray. And it has, like it says, 80 plus trailers over 3 hours. Tons and tons of stuff on this. Ranging from Dr. Butcher to the Deadly Spawn. We have the Curious Female. Let's see, what else we have on here? Flesh Gordon, and a bunch of stuff that was not on the original volume. But there's also a bunch of stuff missing, and this is a point I wanted to clear up for people that collect these, because I've heard people say, oh, I'm just going to get this one, not worry with the first volume. That you can't do that, because, again, there's a bunch of stuff missing that was on the first volume that's not on this one. Now, a lot of the first volume is on this one, but it's still missing a whole big handful of trailers, so if you're like me and really into these, I highly recommend picking them both up. But this one is very cool, and I love this cover. Look at that. You got the Shogun Assassin, Lone Wolf and Cub, even though this is the Shogun Assassin trailer on here. Deadly Spawn, the Green Slime. We have Anthropologist, the Grim Reaper, the good old some George Eastman action there. But yeah, this is a great release. And very long. Actually, so long, at over 3 hours. I usually have to watch these in 2 different sittings, because I don't think I can sit through 3.5 hours of movie trailers at once. And it continues. And we have Mad Ron's Previews from Hell. Now these, you can actually find this one on quite a few streaming services to watch. And there's not really a whole lot on here that probably won't see on a bunch of these other ones. It's predominantly horror stuff. You have like Devil's Nightmare, Lady Frankenstein, Cannibal Girls, the aforementioned Torso. But what makes this one really stand out is it has a host, kind of like Horrible Horror, where the bulk of these are just trailers back to back to back. Whereas Horrible Horror and this one actually have little hosts that do little skits. And this one is a guy and his zombie puppet, and some zombies invade a theater. It's worth it alone just seeing that footage. Very kind of cool 80s zombie movie effects. And an 80s zombie movie puppet. Yeah, this one's quite cool. If you can find this one on streaming still, I recommend giving it a watch. Especially for my horror friends out there. Oh, jumping back real quick, as I mentioned before, there are cases where the trailer takes on a life of its own, and what I wanted to mention in particular is Caged Virgins, aka Requiem for a Vampire. That is one of my all-time favorite movie trailers. I like that one so much, I actually like it better than the movie itself. It's one that if I was going to recommend that one, I would just go with the trailer. That's really mainly what you need for that one. Okay, moving along. And this right here is probably, I would say, my second favorite movie trailer comp of all time. And it's just behind Horrible Horror, simply because Horrible Horror has so much nostalgia attached to it. But that is the Something Weird sampler from Something Weird Video. And this was just, again, over 100 trailers of Something Weird Video. There is so much great stuff on this one. So many obscure trailers for obscure movies. I have discovered so many movies from this trailer comp alone. I mean, this right here, like if it came Desert Island trailer comp, this is definitely one of them. So much good stuff on here. And some stuff that's so obscure that I still haven't even been able to find to this day. But there's many. Like, for example, Space Thing is a great one that I discovered off of this one. Oh, look, She-Freak's on here. This one has stuff from Herschel Gordon Lewis and Ted V. Michaels, or Mickles, however you say it. I'm sure it's Michaels. I also discovered Monsters Crash the Pajama Party Spook Show Spectacular off of this one. I mean, just so much from here. Yeah, I highly, 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 highly recommend this one. If you like obscure, strange B-movies and exploitation films, this is a definite high recommendation. And I think you can still find this one even. And now, this next one, which I believe is a UK release, I actually can't show the back cover or even part of the front cover, but this was actually the very first contemporary trailer comp I ever saw. Just for whatever reason, it just never crossed my brain box that something like Horrible Horror, something else like Horrible Horror would even exist. But a friend brought this over one time years and years back, and I was just blown away by it and just sat there and watched the entire thing, discovering all these tons and tons of movies that I'd never seen before or never even heard of before. But yeah, this was a really good one. And I'm going to cover that up because, again, can't show that front cover or back cover. Okay, now and finally we're getting into the cream of the crop, which at one point the 42nd Street Forever series was pretty much the cream of the crop, but I'd say that the Drive-In Delirium series has kind of taken their crown, and these are really the best of the best that you can get. And I like these because they are very themed. This one, for example, is Maximum 80s, and it's all 80s movies trailers, and right here 110 demented trailers. And I mean, it's got all kinds of, I mean, you see Chuck Norris, you see Linnea Quigley. I mean, this is a great volume. Eliminate, I mean, the fact that Eliminators would be on the cover should just show you just how good this one actually is. And these, even though they are foreign releases, I believe they're all region free. Yeah, it's region free. I believe most of them are. And again, great, you can just open it up and look at, oh, can't really see, you're just seeing my camera, my silly face. Let's see what's all on here. I cannot read that from here. Anyway, just take my word. There's some great stuff on this one. This one is very recommended. And then we have yet another volume of Drive-In Delirium. And again, I think the cover alone should tell you, I mean, just the greatness in this one. We have, obviously, I would assume Death Wish, Bruce Lee, 1990, the Bronx Warriors. The back here we have the green slime again. And that's one thing, when you have this many trailer comps, the trailers start to overlap a little bit. So you just kind of gotta find the ones you like the best But these are really, really super quality, this Drive-In Delirium series. The new batch. Yes, indeed. And now we have Trailer Trauma, which I actually, not remembering off the top of my head much about this one. It looks like it's predominantly horror movie trailers. That might be why. Got this snapper case thing. I can't. Let's see, what's on this one? But yeah, it looks pretty, well, a lot of horror. Oh yeah, there's some good stuff on here. 9 Deaths of the Ninja, The Eliminators, Mutant War, Iron Master, Smokey and the Hot Wire Gang. I mean, who doesn't love Smokey and the Hot Wire Gang? The Demon Lover, and Jungle Wolf 2, Return Fire. And next we have Shock Festival by Steven Romano. And Steven Romano is a writer, and this trailer comp was actually a companion piece to a book he wrote, which I believe was a book on, I never got it, on fake exploitation films and their posters or something. But this first disc is actually all real exploitation films. And what's really neat about this one is the third disc are actually MP3s of TV and radio spots for the different movies. And let me tell you, I have used that one so many times for songs and such. Yeah, this is a pretty neat release itself. And reaching the end here, we have the Festival of Fright 3-disc collection, and this is over 100 classic monster and horror movie trailers. I mean, this is getting into more so, even stuff earlier than Horrible Horror. I mean, we're getting into like King Kong and Kingdom of the Zombies, the Universal monster movies and stuff. This is a great one for lovers of classic sci-fi and monster movies. I mean, just to name a few, we have Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello Meet the Killer. We have Brides of Dracula. There are some color ones on here, by the way. I Bury the Living, Taste the Blood of Dracula, The Screaming Skull, Macabre, The Mummy, The Haunted Palace, A Bucket of Blood, 13 Ghosts. I mean, yeah, this is a really good set. Only thing with this one, here, let's take a look. Take a look at these, because they have some pretty neat. This is a fairly early trailer comp, so the quality on these can be a little rough at times. I mean, there's some good quality ones, but there are some pretty rough quality ones. But man, do I love these covers. I mean, look at the Mole Man, maybe. King Kong, of course, the Zombie, King Kong again, you know, Vincent Price, and Gina Davis, obviously, because what classic set doesn't include Gina Davis? And finally, the last one in this long, drawn-out, long-winded video, and that's one of the rarest and most interesting trailer comps I own, and that's the Skunkape trailers compilation. And this is basically a collection of trailers from the Trailers That Smell channel. And if you're not familiar with that very interesting, very unique, very creative channel, it's basically fan-made trailers for really obscure, obscure, that's the best way I can describe it, really obscure, really rare movies, that some of which maybe don't necessarily have decent trailers, but Skunkape makes trailers for these films, and sometimes they're just good trailers for the film, sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're mashups. This is just a great channel for anyone that digs obscure B-movies and exploitation films, and with a humorous slant on it. I highly recommend checking out that channel. Now, this Blu-ray, this compilation itself is not actually for sale. This is a promo piece for special VIPs like myself. But you can still go and check all these trailers out, I believe all these trailers out, on the site itself. Now, on the other hand, if any of my YouTube buddies have any interest in covering this, you might be able to talk to Mr. Skunkape, and maybe he might be able to hook you up with some of the PU-ness. And that is all the time we have for this week. Please like, comment, subscribe, and keep it wacky.